Perfect. Good afternoon. Welcome to the October 3rd Regional Planning Committee meeting. Before I move forward, I would like to ask our interpreter how to access interpretation.
Good afternoon, announcement from the interpreter. To use the interpretation feature, please scroll to the bottom of the Zoom screen where the meeting controls are. Click on the interpretation icon, World, and select English as your language. If you're joining through the Zoom mobile app, cell phone, tablet, etc., please press the ellipsis, then interpretation, and then choose your language. Finally, click on Mute Original Audio to not hear the original Spanish low in the background. Headsets are available for interpretation. If you're in the meeting room, please check out a headset from the receptionist in the lobby. Buenas tardes, aviso por parte del intérprete. Para hacer uso del servicio de interpretación, favor de desplazarse a la parte inferior de la pantalla de Zoom, donde aparecen los controles. Haga clic en el icono de interpretación, globo terráqueo, y seleccione Spanish, español. Si está utilizando la aplicación móvil de Zoom, celular, tableta, etc., presione los puntos suspensivos, luego interpretación y luego el idioma. Si no desea escuchar el audio original en inglés en el fondo, por favor seleccione Mute Original Audio, silenciar audio original. Contamos con auriculares disponibles para el servicio de interpretación. Si se encuentra en la sala de reunión, favor de pedir auriculares con la recepcionista en el vestíbulo. Gracias. Thank you.
Thank you. First, I will ask our clerk, Ms. Francesca Webb, to confirm we have a quorum.
Thank you, Chair. We do have a quorum and every jurisdiction is represented today.
Thank you. I would like to take a moment to acknowledge the land that we call home. The tribal nations of San Diego region have historically faced injustices. We acknowledge the harmony that existed between the land, nature, and its original peoples, who have since endured displacement, persecution, and systemic oppression. We pay our respect to the unceded territory and homelands of the 18 tribal nations in our region, the most in any county in the United States, from 4 cultural groups, the Kumeyaay, the Diagayanya, the Luisanya, the Kupanya, and the Cahuilla. This land has nourished, healed, protected, and embraced them for many generations in a relationship of balance and harmony. As members of the SANDAG community, we acknowledge this legacy. We aspire to learn from indigenous traditional knowledge and experiences in undoing the injustice of the past. I will now call the meeting to order. Please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
On to item number 1, non-agenda public and member comments. Per our board policy, the amount of time allowed for each verbal public comment is determined based on the number of agenda items, the complexity of those items, and the number of persons anticipated to offer comment. This allows us to hear from as many people as possible and to complete our businesses while we still have a quorum. Based on those factors for today's meeting, each member of the public will be allowed 2 minutes for their comments. Francesca, do we have any members of the public that wish to speak?
Thank you, Chair. We do not have any public comments on this item.
Okay. Mario, Antoinette, I'm not sure who. Did you have any SANDAG updates you'd like to share?
Yes, sure. I think you were going to mention that an item was going to be pulled. No, I am. Okay. They had here the chair mentioned. So, first of all, on the Smart Growth Incentive Program, we're pulling the Smart Growth Plan program off today's agenda. There was an error in the scoring, and so we need to restart the evaluation process. I take full responsibility of this, but I also want to assure you that I remain committed to reevaluate and recalibrate every single role in this agency and responsibilities across it, including the grants program, to make sure that this does not occur again. On strengthening partnerships, we've been engaging. I'm very happy to announce that we had a great second city managers roundtable with the different city managers across the county. Also, MTS, North County Transit, the airport, Caltrans was also invited. And it really provides an opportunity to exchange ideas and common themes of where we can partner. I also had the pleasure last Saturday, as well as some of the members here, to attend the 50th anniversary of North County Transit. And again, highlight the partnerships and the ongoing support that we have mutually. I also want to inform the group that we attended, both Antoinette and myself, this week in Sacramento, the roundtable discussion on Senate Bill 375. It was hosted or chaired by the Big Four MPOs, as well as former Senator Darrell Steinberg, which is the author of the legislation. We had a very frank discussion with different groups, partnerships, and let it be environmental groups, infrastructure groups, all across the board, on where we can make 375 better and bring it back. It's been almost 18 years since the legislation was approved, and how can we actually work towards more implementation than doing basically exercises of modeling and all that type of items there. So the goal is, again, to get the greenhouse emissions down in the state. So how can we implement projects? And they're all across the board, how we can make a better, the opportunities are there to how to make a better environment. Regarding air conformity, as you are aware, the federal government recently took action that made California version of the air quality model invalid. The waivers were taken out. So we're working with the state and the federal government to understand what is the vehicle that we have to use to be able to prove that we're within conformity, or what are the tools that we need to comply within the law. In that same token, yesterday on the DBE program, the Department of Transportation published a new rule where there were significant changes on the DBE program. So we're waiting for additional guidelines on this so we can really know what are the DBE goals that we need to apply in the different projects that we have ongoing, coming, and in the middle of being processed for contracts. That concludes my update, Chair.
Thank you very much. Are there any comments from committee members this time? Seeing none, we'll move to the consent agenda. Francesca, do we have any public comments?
Chair, we do not have any public comments.
Okay, may I have a motion to recommend the consent agenda?
Move approval.
Thank you. Thank you. Second from Joel. I have a motion and a second. Please vote. Oh, mine's not working.
Chair, I think you may need to press one more time. Oh, sorry.
It worked. Nope, it's still not working. Well, why is it? Am I doing the wrong one? No, this is Suffolk County. There it goes. Okay, thank you.
That motion passes unanimously with those members present.
Thank you. Okay. Moving on to reports. Anna Bettis and Samaya Elder will present an overview of the draft regional climate action roadmap, seeking our input. Thank you.
Okay. Yeah, it was four.
Yeah,
That's what I said. Because I did have that in here.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Anna Bettis, and I'm a senior planner on the climate and environmental mitigation team. It's nice to be here with you this afternoon. You might remember that our team came to you back in March to share the draft greenhouse gas reduction measures for the regional climate action roadmap that we've been working on. And since then, we've been coordinating regularly with your staff to develop the rest of the climate action roadmap, which is now out for public comment. I'll kick us off with our agenda for the presentation. First, I'll kick us off with just a brief overview of the grant that's supporting this work. Then I'll provide an update on the progress that we've made on the roadmap. And then I'll turn it over to my colleague, Samaya Elder, who will talk about our approach to developing the roadmap. And finally, she'll close us out with looking ahead at what's next. Okay, with that, let's get started. So for some background, SANDAG received a planning grant from the U.S. Environmental Protection Agency to produce 3 deliverables. The first was a priority climate action plan that was completed in March of last year, and that was focused on how to reduce emissions from the largest emitting sectors by 2030. The second, which is the focus of our presentation today, is the Regional Climate Action Roadmap, which is a vision for how we can reduce emissions across all sectors through 2045 and is due in December of this year. And then finally, we'll be reporting out progress that we've made in 2027. So with that, let's transition to talk more about what you can expect to see in the draft Regional Climate Action Roadmap. I'll start with the greenhouse gas inventory. We worked with the Energy Policy Initiative Center, or EPIC, at the University of San Diego to develop the updated greenhouse gas inventory for the San Diego region for the roadmap for the year 2022. As you may know, EPIC has worked with many local governments on their climate action plans and has also prepared the regional greenhouse gas inventories for the last 3 regional plans. The inventory is shown here on the slide in the pie chart, and as you can see, transportation remains the largest source of emissions, followed by electricity, natural gas for buildings, and industrial emissions. The inventory is included in both Chapter 3 of the Regional Climate Action Roadmap and also in Appendix G of the Draft 2025 Regional Plan. And I do want to mention here, since I brought up the regional plan, that the sustainable community strategy for the regional plan is focused on how to reduce emissions just in that dark blue pie section of the pie chart that's labeled passenger and light duty vehicles, whereas the roadmap is a vision that explores opportunities to reduce emissions across all sectors. So using that 2022 inventory as our base year, the roadmap provides a vision for how our region can work collaboratively to reduce greenhouse gas emissions. And more specifically, it shows how the San Diego region could reduce emissions 47% below 2022 levels by 2035 through coordinated regional action and additional funding, and how we could make substantial progress toward our 2045 goal of reducing economy-wide emissions in the region by 83% below 2022 levels. And these 2 goals for reducing emissions in the near and long term were selected to align with state goals established in SB 32 and AB 1279, and also to be consistent with the timeframes of many local climate action plans. So if you'd like to get more information on how we establish those 2 goals, you can read Appendix C of the roadmap. And before I move on from the goals, I do want to touch on how those are different from the regional plan targets. So the roadmap goals are voluntary and are meant to estimate potential greenhouse gas reductions across all sectors, not just transportation, if the roadmap was implemented alongside other regional and state actions. Whereas, as I mentioned when we talked about the inventory, the sustainable community strategy of the regional plan addresses those mandated targets set by SB 375 to reduce emissions from passenger and light duty vehicles. So I just wanted to call out the distinction there. And so to tackle the roadmap's goals, it includes 23 greenhouse gas reduction measures covering 8 sectors. And I'll note that since we last saw you, we decided to add a water sector, and that was really in response to what we heard from stakeholders during outreach we conducted while developing the roadmap. And if you want to read more about the measures, they are in Chapter 6 of the roadmap. The roadmap also contains several analyses looking at how the measures could reduce air pollution, the anticipated workforce needs, and how the measures could improve quality of life for residents in the San Diego region. With that, I will hand it over to my colleague, Samaya Elder, to talk more about our approach to developing the roadmap. Thank you.
Thanks, Anna. Yes, now that you've heard an overview of what's in the roadmap, I want to take a step back and provide some additional context as to how we got to where we are today, as well as what's coming next. So as Anna mentioned, we've used a variety of outreach methods to gather input on the roadmap. This slide covers the first three that we'll be highlighting today. So starting at the top, we've held interagency meetings bi-monthly to gather ongoing feedback on the scoping and direction of the roadmap. So this has included local jurisdictions, regional and state agencies, and tribal nations. In addition to these ongoing meetings, we held a series of technical stakeholder meetings last fall when we were developing the draft greenhouse gas reduction measures. This allowed us to get detailed technical input from practitioners and subject matter experts in the field. We've also held 2 regional workshops so far focused on the roadmap. The first was in July of 2024, and the second was in February 2025, so earlier this year. And we actually have a third workshop planned for next week. These workshops convene local jurisdictions, regional agencies, tribes, CBOs, environmental groups, and other regional stakeholders to provide input at key milestones on the roadmap. The photo on the slide here is from our February workshop, where we had more than 60 attendees representing 43 different agencies and organizations in the region. So we were really happy with that turnout. We've also, of course, been coming to working groups and policy advisory committees here at SANDAG at key milestones. For example, as Anna mentioned when we came to you in March, one of the things that you told us was that outreach and education are critical to the success of many of the programs and projects listed in the roadmap's measures. You'll see now that in the draft roadmap, and based on this feedback, we've highlighted the importance of outreach and education in several places. More recently, over the past couple of weeks, we have also presented at Sustainable Communities Working Group and Social Equity Working Group, and we received no major feedback, but we did have lots of questions. Themes from these questions were around how SANDAG plans to use the roadmap after it's finalized, the status of our funding, especially in relation to the EPA, and how we will track progress towards the vision that the roadmap lays out. And then lastly, on this slide, we've conducted significant community outreach and engagement, which includes a public survey that we conducted earlier this year. I'll touch on the survey more in just a moment, but I first want to highlight that a really critical piece of our outreach strategy has been partnering with CBOs or community-based organizations. They've been conducting roadmap outreach and education in their communities and have greatly helped with gathering survey responses, which is what's shown in the photo on the slide here. So as promised, diving into the survey a little bit more. I know this slide has a lot of information on it, so I'll just provide a brief overview and then we'll get into our kind of key takeaways from the survey. So the survey, really the purpose of it was to allow us to get public input on what types of climate actions should be included in the greenhouse gas reduction measures for the roadmap. By reviewing local climate action plans, conducting research and outreach and engagement, so we developed the list of strategies that are pictured here in the text on the left-hand side. The survey then asked people to rank each of these strategies or indicate how important they felt they were. So for example, there were 4 response options listed at the top of the slide. They were don't know, not important, important, and very important. In total, we received nearly 700 survey responses. So again, seeing a lot of interest in this topic. And we then used a weighted scoring process to rank each of the strategies by how important people thought they were. So that's really what this graphic here is illustrating. One thing that I want to highlight about the results is, as you can see, the range of the scores all hover right around important to very important. So in general, the climate action strategies listed here were well received and thus are included in the roadmap. The ones that scored lower were the ones based on the weighted scoring process with more don't know responses, which indicates an opportunity for more education and outreach on these topics. Taking a closer look at some examples of key takeaways from the survey and how they're reflected in the roadmap, the top 3 strategies as listed on the previous slide in the ranking were number 1, planting more trees in city areas, which is included in the roadmap's natural and working land sector. Second was protecting and restoring more natural habitats, which is also included in 2 places in the natural and working land sector. And third was faster and better public transit, which is included in our transportation sector. So that concludes our overview of the outreach we've done so far to develop the draft roadmap. So now I'll wrap up with what's coming next. The main thing to highlight today is that the draft roadmap is available for review and public comment on the SANDAG website. If you go to sandag.org/cap, you'll see all the materials there. Our public comment period is anticipated to be open through October 17th, so we'd love to hear from you and any others at your jurisdictions or organizations. As I mentioned earlier, we're also hosting another regional workshop next week. We'll get additional feedback from our regional climate stakeholders there on the draft. And then we'll work to review and incorporate the feedback that we've gathered over the past month at working groups, today's regional planning committee meeting, and next week's workshop to finalize the roadmap by December 1st. And then we will be submitting it to the EPA. So with that, we're so grateful for your time today and happy to take any questions or comments. Thank you.
Thank you. Francesca, do we have any public comments?
Thank you, Chair. We do have one public comment. Clayton Fowler would like to step up to the podium. I think he actually may have left. All right, I guess, oh. No.
I did see him here a minute ago at the beginning, but then he's not here. All right, well, we will move on then. Do we have any member comments at this time? Okay. I'm sorry, do we have any member comments at this time?
Yes.
Yes, thank you.
Yeah, I had a question. If you could bring up the pie chart that showed the sources and so this gets back to the question I always ask about EVs. So we see the largest pie chart section is passenger light, but my recollection is our goals do not include the electrification of the cars. Does this inventory include?
It does, completely separate from SB 375. So this includes both electric cars and
Okay,
gas-powered cars.
so we actually get credit here for our constituents.
And there's
buying
no credit to be
electric
had in this one. It's just, this is the greenhouse gas inventory. These are the sources of greenhouse gases in the region
cars. Okay.
today. And then the goals that have been set for reducing greenhouse gas emissions are completely separate from SB 375 as well. That's saying if we implemented all of these measures, this is the greenhouse gas emission reduction that we could achieve, and it does include investments in electric vehicles and the transition to electric vehicles.
And then construction equipment, does that fall under heavy duty and other vehicles for, and what kind of, which one of the pie chart segments is it under? Industrial? It's obviously not passenger light, but
I think it's under heavy duty trucks and other vehicles. Could you confirm, Anna?
Yeah, and actually we have Ichao Gu from USD Epic who worked on the technical elements of the roadmap. So I'll let her answer that question.
Thanks, Anna. Yes, to your question, they're included in the passenger and light duty pie, in the heavy duty pie.
I can't hear you.
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Thank you. Just to repeat, the EV regulations are included in the passenger and light duty pie, the heavy duty pie, and also the regulations on the off-road vehicles and equipment. So they're also included that slice as well.
so both heavy duty on-road and off-road are in the heavy duty trucks and other vehicles?
Correct.
And if you had to split on-road versus construction, how much of that heavy duty trucks and other vehicles is one or the other? Is it dominated by one or the other? Or is it split evenly?
So if you can look at the small slice of the off-road transportation, so construction equipment, emissions from construction equipment is captured that very tiny slice. We don't have that number on top of head, but it's very small on the construction equipment side compared to heavy duty on-road vehicles.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions?
Yes, thank you. I wasn't able to locate this. So when we're thinking about reduction of electricity, greenhouse gases, or I guess it would be, I don't know how we would term that, but older properties that have substantial, like light industrial, that sort of thing, that have substantial rooftop, where would we, I mean, like, just thinking about CCEs, if they were to invest in technology like solar, and then that would actually be a savings, where would that be located within the study? I wasn't able to, am I clear? You're kind of looking at each other, sorry.
Yeah.
Do you know where I'm going?
Yes.
Okay,
Yes.
all
Yeah.
right.
So,
Sorry.
yes, bringing up the CCAs, as you mentioned, I know that San Diego Community Power has a number of programs that they've outlined via the San Diego Regional Energy Network, or SDREN. We've highlighted a number of those programs, including solar rooftop programs in the implementation milestones for the measures. So if you take a look at the electricity sector and the building sector, those both have a variety of SDREN programs that would address those kinds of projects.
So I was looking at specifically, I think it would be located in the Appendix B, or no? Is it Appendix B?
I would check out chapter 6 where we list the measures and then looking at the buildings and energy or electricity sectors.
Okay.
Yeah,
Thank you.
sure thing.
Is there another one? I have, yes, Ron?
Yeah, when we're, get a little closer, when we're looking at electrification, we are so used to having electrification as far as with our cars, small vehicles. And so we plug them in at our house or where we're working, it's plug in, it's not a big problem. When we're talking about those large vehicles, we're talking about the 18-wheelers and stuff, it's a different animal. And that needs to be taken into consideration. We can't just take a look at it at kilowatt hours. We can't just look at it across the board type concept. I know our city is currently looking at a situation to where the port on the port property, so it's outside of our jurisdiction, we don't get a vote on it, is looking at putting an electrification for 18-wheelers. 18-wheelers are a mobile lithium power bank. It increases the weight of that truck by 1/3. Any accident, any kind of malfunction, any kind of anything else, this is immediately west of Interstate 5, upwind from our entire city. We would have to immediately evacuate Interstate 5 and our city. So it's a different animal than just plugging in your car. And so we can't just look at these categories and say electrification is electrification. But we need to take a look at also that what goes into it and how it affects our communities. And we're certainly not against electrification. We're not against electrification of 18-wheelers, but we got to make sure we position them in the right place. And we look at that from a regional standpoint, not an individual jurisdiction standpoint.
Thank you. Did I have any other comments from the dais? I have a couple of questions. The first one on this slide, and it gets back to, I think, Mayor Jones's question. For all of the homes that already have solar and battery, their electricity isn't counted in the electricity, that 18%, because it's actually behind the meter. So if we wanted to capture savings from future solar or future batteries, how would that be reflected in this inventory?
Yeah, thanks for that question. And I'm glad we have each out here. Again, I'll turn that one to her on how we've reflected that.
Thanks, Anna. And thanks, Chair, for the question. So I think there are two parts. You're only seeing the 2022 greenhouse gas inventory. So when we make the greenhouse gas projection through 2050, your solar PV and any rooftop solar, those would be counted as zero emissions in our calculation. And as Samaya was mentioning earlier, there's another greenhouse gas reduction strategy, increasing the rooftop solar or any renewable generation. Doesn't necessarily have to be solar on the customer side. So those are captured both in the projection and in the greenhouse gas reduction strategies.
And just to confirm, the piece of the pie we're looking at for electricity, that is the electricity used in homes and buildings as opposed to electricity used in passenger light duty vehicles. I want to make sure everybody's clear on that. If we want to decrease going forward the amount of greenhouse gas in those sectors, I want to make sure everybody understands where it's fitting into that pie piece. So if the 2050 numbers are going to be looking at decreasing the greenhouse gas from electricity by those type of measures, whereas decreasing in passenger and light duty vehicles is separate. That is for our vehicles, not our houses.
Yeah, that's right, Chair.
And
Any other questions from the, yes?
Thank you, Chair. I think the only question I might have is, of course, this is being done in conjunction with our regional plan update as well. But considering there are a lot of local jurisdictions that have been considering drafting climate action plans as well. City of San Diego certainly has one. How does this roadmap work to sort of integrate and align with the other climate action initiatives that we see?
Yeah, thank you for the question. So the roadmap is really building on what we are seeing happening at the local level and then taking that up to the regional level. So we've been working very closely with our local governments and looking at their climate action plans to make sure that what we're doing is, taking that next step from what they've already done. If you want to hear more about the quantifications themselves, each can talk about that. But I think your question is just more about kind of how it relates to one another. Is that right?
Yeah, I mean, largely because I think in some of the conversations we've seen, how we choose to quantify some of the data ends up being maybe a little bit different depending on jurisdiction at times. We see that across housing data as an example. So I'll be curious as we proceed how that ultimately does align.
Yeah, thank you. And I just want to add one other thing, just based on what you've said and some of the other questions, that what we're seeing on the slide here is really a snapshot of what the emissions were for 2022. What you'll also find in the roadmap document for each of the measures that we put in there, there's quantifications for what the greenhouse gas reductions would be. So sort of separate, here's where we are and here's how we could reduce them. So we don't have those numbers on the slide here. Is a lot of information to capture, but it's in the draft roadmap if you'd like to take a look at that.
Do you mind if I add on as well? And I will just say too, once the roadmap is finalized, we have plans and channels of communication to continue coordination with all of our local jurisdictions to understand how they're making progress in their local caps and how that could kind of feed up towards this regional vision that the roadmap is establishing. So we'll plan to keep tracking that.
Thank you. And I appreciate the pie chart for the GHG inventory. And I imagine we all recognize as well that if the roadmap does allow us to tackle some of the areas that what is mainly the largest piece of the pie may not also match up all the time with where the biggest opportunity for reductions are. Also, if we're successful in some of the mitigations, we would see a very different pie chart, which doesn't necessarily mean that is the largest problem. It is just, the shifting picture. So just in terms of how we look at this pie chart versus what we expect as a baseline moving forward, I think that's important for us to consider. So thank you.
Thank you. Did anybody else have any questions? No? Okay, this is an informational item. So we aren't going to take action on that one. Thank you very much. On the last report, Jose Alvarez and Stacy Cooper will provide an update on new housing legislation.
Good afternoon, committee. I'm Stacy Cooper, and this is Jose Alvarez. We're going to be providing a 2025 legislation update on housing.
Good afternoon, Chair and committee members. My name is Jose Alvarez. I'm part of the government relations team here at SANDAG. Before we get started, I wanted to remind you all of some important deadlines, legislative deadlines to consider. September 12th was the last day for bills to pass the legislature and be sent to the governor. October 13 is the last day for the governor to sign or veto bills that made it out of the legislature. And January 1st, 2026 is the date when newly signed bills would go into effect unless otherwise noted by the legislation.
Sorry, and I'm going to talk about the bill that everybody's been talking about, SB 79. So this bill introduced by Senator Wiener would upzone around certain transit stops on site zoned for residential, mixed use, and commercial. It increasing housing density based on the distance from a transit stop, transit type, and service frequency. I'll provide more details on the next slide. Since being introduced, SB 79 has gone through 13 rounds of amendments and has passed through the Assembly and the Senate. If it gets signed by the governor, it will be effective on July 1st, 2026. Just to note, SANDAG took an official position of opposition and is also sending a letter to the governor reiterating our position. Okay, so SB 79 defines a transit-oriented development stop, or TOD stop, then places them in tiers. The first qualifier for both is a major transit stop as defined by state law. Then for Tier 1, that major transit stop needs to be served by heavy rail or very high-frequency commuter rail. For Tier 2, that stop needs to be served by light rail, high-frequency commuter rail, or bus service with a dedicated lane and 15-minute service intervals. It applies within a quarter mile of all qualifying TOD stops and within a half mile in jurisdictions with populations over 35,000. Previous versions of the bill also included a third tier, but through amendments that was removed. So SB 79 requires the housing development to include at least 5 units and meet certain height, density, and floor area ratio standards. For projects more than 10 units, there are also affordability requirements. Projects must comply with state and local demolition and anti-displacement standards. And SB 79 projects are eligible for streamlining pursuant to SB 423, which, as a reminder, is an extension and expansion of SB 35 and allows home builders to pursue a streamlined ministerial approval process in cities that have fallen behind their RENA targets. So to be exempt from the bill, local governments can adopt a local TOD alternative plan. However, the plan needs to demonstrate at least the same net capacity as outlined in the bill and be approved by HCD by July 1st, 2026. So what's the estimated impact in our region? Trolley, Sprinter, and some rapid bus transit stops will likely qualify as Tier 2. The bill also requires that SANDAG create an SB 79 map. So if it passes, we'll be providing that in the future. And I'll pass it over to Jose to talk about the budget bills.
So Assembly Bill 130 and Senate Bill 131 were the housing budget trailer bills under this year's 2025-26 state budget. They were signed into law by Governor Newsom on June 30th. These bills introduced some of the most significant changes to the California Environmental Quality Act in recent history, with the goal of increasing housing supply and improving housing affordability in the state. The reforms were partially motivated by legislative concerns over the misuse of CEQA by project opponents to delay projects for reasons unrelated to environmental concerns. To provide a brief overview, the bills include CEQA exemptions for urban infill housing projects and near-miss projects. Additionally, the bills provide CEQA exemptions to rezoning actions taken by local governments to implement their approved housing elements. They include other miscellaneous and administrative changes to the law, like, for example, an extension for the regional early action planning grants, which SANDAG administers regionally to develop affordable housing. They also provide additional authorities to the California Department of Housing and Community Development in order for the department to approve a council of governments RENA methodology. The department was previously only authorized to review the methodology. So now it's a formal approval. To provide a little more details on the urban infill exemptions, these bills provide complete exemptions from CEQA for certain urban infill housing development projects. The requirements to qualify for these exemptions include that a housing development project site cannot be larger than 20 acres. For builders' remedy projects, this limit is of 5 acres. The projects must be located within an infill site as stated by Public Resources Code. The project must be consistent with the city's general plan and zoning. And the density of these projects must be of at least 50% of the housing element default density. Additionally, the bill narrows CEQA analysis for housing development projects, meeting all criteria for an exemption, except for one condition. This means that the environmental review shall be limited to impacts caused solely by that single condition. And this provision is what we call the near-miss exemption. The new statutory CEQA exemptions provided under these bills may lead to an increase of residential and mixed-use residential projects in San Diego County.
All right, and on to some of the RENA reform bills. So California's Housing Future 2040, or the RENA report released last year by HCD, made a number of recommendations to the legislature for RENA reform. In addition to increased HCD oversight that was included in AB 130, there are a few other bills on the governor's desk that address the recommendations surrounding the RENA timeline and further aligning RENA and the SCS. AB 650, which was supported by SANDAG, moves up the RENA timeline. It would also require HCD to provide specific analysis or text to local governments to remedy deficiencies in their draft housing elements. The other two bills, SB 33 and AB 1275, are consistent with the timeline changes outlined in AB 650. These bills give us more time for the RENA process, and the next slide outlines those changes. Okay, first let's start with understanding Cycle 7's anticipated timeline. You may be questioning why we're waiting to start consultation with HCD until early 2028 when our current RENA plan only goes to 2029. This is because of AB 1730. When we extended the development of our 2021 regional plan, legislation was passed that included language to shift our RENA timeline to better align the two planning efforts. With housing elements due 18 months after the adoption of the 2029 RTP, we anticipate beginning consultation with HCD in early 2028. We'll then receive our RENA determination in late spring, early summer of 2028. Our draft methodology will be due to HCD in late 2028, with draft allocations provided to the jurisdictions by summer of 2029. This is a tentative timeline, and we're still working closely with HCD to define exact dates. One thing that's important to note is the arrow at the bottom, which emphasizes that throughout every step of the schedule, we'll have lots of discussion and working sessions with your staff, committees, and the board to provide direction on how we proceed with Cycle 7. And that concludes our presentation. I'd like to hear any questions or comments.
Does anyone have any questions? Comments? Wow, okay. Thank you very much for the presentation. That concludes today's meeting. Thank you to the production team and Francesca for the meeting support. This is our last meeting of 2025.
Chair, before we adjourn, I just wanted to note that there were no public comments on the last item.
Oh, I'm sorry. I thought I had asked for that. Thank you very much for catching me. I will repeat, though, this is our last meeting of 2025. Thanks to all the members for your participation. The RPC meeting calendar for 2026 will be approved at a future board meeting and posted online. We are up.
When would item 4 come back?
I beg your pardon?
When would item 4 that we continued, does it not come back till next year?
Thank you.
No.
Yeah, that's a great question.
No, we will have to go and reevaluate all the applications and go back to iTalk because it originates there. So I would expect that it will be at the upcoming meeting next year.
So next year?
Yeah.
Okay.
So we can make sure that all the checks and balances are there appropriately.
For the ones that were awarded, will they proceed or is it all on hold pending?
All
On hold, okay. And
Yes.
when were the grants going to occur? In other words, is the availability of the grant delayed as a result of this?
Yes, so originally today you were going to make a recommendation, Transportation Committee would make a recommendation at their next meeting, and then it would go to the board before the end of the year. Under the circumstances, we need to just go back, we need to check the spreadsheets, check all of the calculations, the numbers, and then start that process over again. So it's probably off by a month or so.
Okay, great. Thank you.
The important item, it's that it's local dollars Transnet, so it doesn't have a sunset period. It's the agency's its own dollars. So if it would be federal funding or something that has a due date to use, but it's not the case here.
Okay,
Thank you.
Great.
just asking because I'm sure we'll be asked.
Yes. Oh, yes. Before I let everybody go, if the recalculation goes to iTalk first, I take it. So anybody here that wants to see the numbers, we just have to pay attention to the iTalk because they will see it before the end of the year.
Yes, and we have also we will be sending today, later today, the same notice to all the city managers and to the board of directors, so everybody's aware of it. And we'll try to keep everybody informed. So it's basically, if you were notified that you were getting something, please hold off. It may be get recalibrated. Apologies for that. I know that.
Did anybody else have any questions or comments? No, it was a great question. Thank you very, very much. We are adjourned.